I was the age where it was ICQ, and every once in a while you'd log in on the family computer to go into like a chat room with your friends. Like that was kind of the vibe. Not at all how it is today. So, how do you find teenage relationships have changed from when I was a teenager versus today, where teens seem to be most often communicating with their peers and romantic partners online?
It's a great question. It is truly a game changer. We're reckoning with it in new ways every single day. The toll social media takes on mental health, the toll it takes on body image, and the toll it takes on our children's attention spans and ways of relating. So, obviously, with relationships, the thing that I kept hearing over and over again, and I think the thing that's critical for parents to keep in mind, is that there are no endpoints when your child is carrying a smartphone around all day. So when I was coming of age, if I had a crush, it could be really, really intense and it could be on my mind all the time. But I would go home from school and close the door and be in my room, and I wouldn't necessarily be seeing photos of the person all night and reminders of who the person's dating at the time and all that stuff. But our children do have that. And it's really, really intense. And I think that's just something parents should always keep in mind, no matter how obvious it feels to them. Like, oh God, the smartphones, the social media, whatever. It's really, really huge. One thing I do with my students a lot is when we talk about breakups, we look at this brain scan study that was done in the 90s. And it scanned the brains of people who had recently been dumped by someone they were still very much in love with. And what they did in the brain scan to get people's brains triggered and all the different, blood flow things to light up on the screen is they showed them pictures of the person who had broken up with them. And that is what made their brains go crazy, made them cry, made them feel the feelings. And so I always pause and I say to my students, what does that remind you of? And there's always like a little pause. And then I start miming scrolling through a phone. And it's basically exactly what they do every single day, all the time. And if their ex is on their social media feed, which that person probably is, they're triggering those feelings, those really fierce feelings of loss and hurt and abandonment. So we just always need to keep that in mind. And then I also think that alongside of that is that young people really hunger for skills conversations. I hear things from the young people I've interviewed, kind of embarrassed, like, oh, I broke up with the person over text. And they know that's not okay. And their peers know that's not okay. There's been research on this. The majority of teens say don't break up with someone on text. However, a significant percentage of them do it anyway. And one thing I've heard from young people are things like, I honestly didn't know how to do it otherwise. They did not know how to do it otherwise.
Because they don't communicate much like outside of texting.
Exactly. Or if they do, texting controls the factors. They don't have to see the emotion on the other person's face. They don't have to deal with the response. They can just put it out there. And they can and do cut off communication sometimes too. Hopefully not. So I think that what I say many times in this book, and that much of the research shows, is that when you treat early relationships as kind of mini labs in ethics and responsibility, what do we owe to people? What does it mean to be kind? What does it mean to deliver difficult news, or to go through something that entails mutual care or at least mutual understanding? That this whole divide between real human feelings and technology needs to be something that parents are constantly discussing with their young people, so that young people do know the right way to break up with someone is to realize it may be painful, but you want to be doing it in person. And there are all kinds of other elements of relationships where young people have to navigate the amount of living they do online versus what it means to be a real thinking, feeling human being with a heart and a brain.
When you were talking about the study where the brain was lighting up, it made me, I'll look at how adults struggle with social media, and then you just like times it by 10 when you think about teens. Because even as an adult woman, if I see a group of girls that I know, they're off doing something on social media, I immediately feel like, why wasn't I invited? Even if I'm not even really good friends with them. Like, I swear to God, I'm like, hey, like, why was I not there? If I'm having those thoughts, I can just imagine what teenagers are going through.
Exactly.
Yeah, especially with Snapchat, because that's so like in the moment, It's like they snap all day. Like, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing, this is who I'm with, this is who I'm with. And so it's constant, as opposed to like, I'll see an Instagram reel and I'm like, oh, that was 5 days ago. Snapchat is like real time, constantly.
Yeah, and I do think it's also very useful for parents to have conversations with young people because, again, the young people, we at least have that memory of a time when this wasn't this way. To have conversations with young people about what exactly is this technology. That it's not just technology, but it's something that a lot of people make a lot of money off of. They are making money off of your heart. And that reaches young people, especially in the high school and college years, often in a way that other things don't. The whole put down the phone, you've been on the phone too long, all the haranguing that parents unfortunately need to do. Sometimes making that connection to awaken them to the fact that this isn't your arm, this isn't your hand, this phone, these social media apps. This is owned by a company and they're making money off of your struggle.
Mm-hmm. Your eyeballs
Yeah.
on the screen, 100%.